Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something totally fresh and honestly really exciting. We are going to map the timeless success philosophies of the legendary Jim Rohn directly onto today's modern algorithmic growth engines. So think of it as ancient wisdom meeting cold, hard platform data. It's going to completely change how you structure your information and build your audience moving forward. Let's get right into it. 85%. That is the stark, kind of shocking reality we are dealing with right out of the gate here. 85% of digital content loses half of its audience almost immediately. I mean, think about that. You pour your absolute heart into a project, hit publish, and poof, the vast majority of people are just gone before you've even made your main point. Okay, let's dive into this. Why exactly do 85% of explainers lose half their viewers in just 30 seconds? What is the missing link between content that instantly dies in the algorithm and content that actually captivates a massive, loyal audience? Well, it all starts with the foundation, meaning how we approach the very philosophy of our work as creators. Section 1. The algorithmic sower. We're essentially looking at two entirely different paths you can take here. On one hand, you have the superficial creator. This is someone who relies on mass-produced, templated fluff, constantly just praying for AdSense survival, which, let's be real, puts you in a highly fragile position. On the other hand, you have the transformational creator. These folks focus on deep value. They stay compliant, sure, but more importantly, they actually own the relationship with their audience. The big takeaway here? Your internal philosophy directly drives your external metrics. It literally is that simple. Now, this is fascinating. When we take this ancient agricultural metaphor and translate it into modern data, it maps out perfectly. The parable's birds represent impression attrition, basically your click-through rate. The rocky ground is that brutal 30-second early drop-off we just talked about. Thorny ground reflects those mid-content retention dips where viewers, just get bored and click away. And the good ground, well, that's your high session time and compounding growth. So let's break these down step by step to see exactly how you can navigate them. Section 2. Surviving birds and rocks. First up, we've got the birds. This represents simple impression attrition. Look, when your content hits a broad algorithmic audience, some unengaged viewers are just naturally going to ignore your hook. It happens. But Jim Rohn's strategic advice here is absolutely brilliant. Do not chase the birds. I mean, you can't run through the field yelling at them to come back, right? Professional creators accept this baseline attrition. Instead of trying to chase down disengaged viewers or appeasing hostile critics, they focus exclusively on their core audience. You just gotta let the birds fly and keep on sowing. But what happens when viewers do click, but then they immediately bounce? That right there is the rocky ground. It represents shallow roots and a catastrophic 30-second drop-off. See, this happens when a speculative clickbait hook successfully gets the click, but then completely fails to deliver real, immediate value. The seed sprouts, but it withers instantly in the hot sun. The viewer feels tricked, and boom, the algorithm aggressively punishes the content. So how do we fix this? To build deep roots, you need a highly disciplined scripting framework. It goes like this. 0 to 5 seconds, you hook the viewer. 5 to 15 seconds, you preview the value. Next, you actually deliver that core value, recap it, and finally, loop them straight into your next piece of content with an end screen call to action. This specific 5-step structure is literally the antidote to rocky ground. It establishes cognitive roots right away and actually fulfills the exact promise you made in your title. Section 3. Clearing thorny video friction. Okay, so to ruthlessly clear out those internal thorns that choke up a viewer's focus, we use J-cuts and L-cuts. These are essentially Hollywood's invisible audio-visual editing tricks. In a J-cut, the audio leads the visual. In an L-cut, the audio carries over into the next scene. These invisible cuts create this relentless, seamless forward momentum. The viewer never consciously notices it's even happening, but they stay completely glued to the screen without any disruption. But beyond just invisible cuts, you also need deliberate pattern interrupts. Think of this as a rapid-fire arsenal to keep the brain engaged. We're talking zoom punch-ins for emphasis, B-roll cutaways to give the talking head a rest, kinetic text pop-ups, camera angle switches, and even sonic punctuation, heavy whooshes or deep bass hits. Firing off one of these deliberate changes every 5 to 7 seconds physically resets a viewer's attention span. It completely clears away the thorns of boredom.
Now, it's not just about the visuals. Acoustic architecture is absolutely crucial. Running a single continuous lo-fi track for 10 minutes, yeah, that's basically putting your audience in an elevator to go to sleep. You need rotational background music. The track has to physically shift in tone along with the spoken chapter. Think driving beats for the hook, and then maybe atmospheric pads for the deep delivery. Doing this totally transforms the viewing experience and holds retention incredibly tight.
Section 4, cultivating the crowd.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is the massive contrast in competition ratios across different niches. Just listen to these numbers. Trading app tutorials sit at a 4.9 ratio. Meditative urban ambience jumps up to 8.8. But Jim Rohn Wealth Success Lessons, an incredibly high 11.9 ratio. To put that into perspective, this perfectly proves that in high competition niches, the demand for deep philosophical value heavily outpaces the high-quality supply. It's absolute prime real estate for the focused creator who's actually willing to put in the real work.
But to keep your viewers on that good ground, you have to execute the ultimate psychological heist. You literally have to hide the ending. You need to ban all finalizing language, so no more saying in conclusion or to wrap up. Actually, scratch that. Just don't hint at the end at all. Move your calls to action squarely into the middle of the content. Keep delivering immense value right through the end screen and hide your final countdown numbers in list formats. Why? Because the second a viewer senses the end is near, they click away early, which completely kills your overall session time.
And that brings us to our final chapter, Section 5, Reaping the Ultimate Harvest. Jim Rohn's classic 70-30 financial rule perfectly maps out to creator longevity. So 70% goes to standard necessities, 10% to charity, 10% to active wealth or equity, and 10% to passive savings. This really highlights that stark philosophical divergence we mentioned earlier. Amateurs tend to spend everything they earn on fleeting trends, right? But professionals, they systematically invest capital right back into their business ecosystem to ensure long-term stability.
And creating that ecosystem requires a highly intentional monetization funnel. Step 1, an opt-in value hook like a free lead magnet just to capture an email. Step 2, the middle tier, which could be self-paced courses or private communities. And Step 3, the high-ticket cap, like premium consulting or coaching. Setting up this exact structure securely migrates your audience off of rented algorithmic land and squarely into your own protected harvest. It basically makes you entirely algorithm-proof. I want to close this explainer with a really profound thought directly from Jim Rohn. He said, success is something you attract by the person you become. You know, all of these digital tactics, the algorithmic tricks, they literally only work if you possess the internal philosophy and the discipline to execute them consistently. So my question to you is, how are you going to refine your own internal philosophy starting today to attract your ultimate harvest? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And as always, keep learning.